We often believe our actions are purely our own, born from conscious decisions and personal will. However, a significant portion of what we do, how we speak, and even how we think can be subtly yet profoundly influenced by the mere perception of being observed. This isn't just about conforming to social norms when someone is explicitly looking at you. It extends to more intricate psychological mechanisms. Think about the meticulous way you park your car when you know a driving instructor is watching, versus the casual reverse in one go you perform when no one's around. This isn't just about fear of judgment, it's a fundamental rewiring of our behavior based on the perceived gaze. This phenomenon has deep roots in both evolutionary psychology and social theory. From an evolutionary standpoint, being watched by a predator meant immediate danger, while being watched by a member of your own group could signify potential social standing or, conversely, ostracization. These ancient instincts, refined over millennia, still play a role in our modern, complex social interactions. The very idea that someone might be watching can trigger a cascade of internal adjustments, from the most superficial outward displays to deeply ingrained moral calculations. It's less about actual surveillance and more about the internal model we build of external scrutiny. The human mind is a master of creating these internal models, constantly simulating scenarios and potential reactions. When the input, being watched, is introduced, this simulation shifts dramatically. It's like a software update for our social operating system, reprioritizing different functions and altering output. This is not simply a matter of good or bad behavior, but a pervasive, almost automatic recalibration of our internal compass in anticipation of external evaluation. This extends beyond simple task performance. It influences our ethical choices, our creativity, and even our perception of risk. The perceived observer can be a physical person, a hidden camera, or even an abstract entity like society or God. One of the earliest and most famous demonstrations of how observation impacts behavior is the Hawthorne effect. This phenomenon emerged from a series of industrial experiments conducted at the Western Electric Company's Hawthorne Works in Cicero, Illinois between 1924 and 1932. Initially, researchers from Harvard University were trying to determine if changes in the work environment, such as lighting levels or breaks, would affect worker productivity. They expected straightforward results: brighter lights, more breaks, higher output. However, what they found was far more complex. In one particular experiment, a group of female workers assembling telephone relays were isolated in a test room. Researchers began manipulating variables like illumination, temperature, and even the length of the workday. Surprisingly, productivity consistently improved, regardless of whether the changes were positive or negative. For example, when lighting was increased, productivity went up. When it was then decreased, productivity still went up. The crucial realization was that it wasn't the physical changes themselves that were driving the improvement. It was the attention the workers were receiving. The mere act of being observed, studied, and having their work discussed made them feel important and valued. This attention created a sense of psychological engagement that overshadowed the physical conditions of their environment. They were aware they were part of a special study, and this awareness spurred them to perform better. The Hawthorne effect is a powerful illustration of how human factors, particularly the sense of being acknowledged and focused upon, can influence performance. It highlighted that employees are not just cogs in a machine, but complex individuals whose psychology plays a significant role in their output. It's a reminder that sometimes the most effective intervention isn't a tangible change, but simply the act of paying attention. However, this effect is often transient. Once the novelty of being observed wears off, or if the observation becomes a routine, the initial boost in productivity can diminish, returning to baseline levels. This suggests that sustained performance requires more than just initial attention. It needs genuine engagement and a sense of ongoing value. The key takeaway isn't that observation always leads to better performance, but that the perception of special attention can temporarily alter behavior. While the Hawthorne effect deals with actual observation, the spotlight effect explores our tendency to dramatically overestimate the degree to which others notice our appearance, our behavior, and our internal states. It's the feeling that everyone's eyes are on you, even when, in reality, most people are far too preoccupied with their own internal worlds to give you much thought. Imagine walking into a crowded room convinced that everyone will notice the small stain on your shirt or the slightly mismatched socks. In reality, most people might not even register your presence, let alone such minor details. This cognitive bias stems from our egocentric viewpoint. We are the center of our own universe, and we often project that centrality onto others. Psychologists Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky conducted a series of experiments to demonstrate this effect. In one study, participants were asked to wear an embarrassing t-shirt featuring a large image of Barry Manilow and then enter a room where other students were already seated. The participants wearing the shirt predicted that approximately half of the other students would notice the shirt. However, when the students in the room were actually questioned, far fewer than predicted had even registered the embarrassing attire. The spotlight effect highlights a fundamental disconnect between our internal experience and external reality. We are acutely aware of our own actions and appearances, and we mistakenly assume that others share this intense focus. This overestimation can lead to significant social anxiety, self-consciousness, and an excessive preoccupation with how we are perceived. This effect isn't limited to physical appearance. It extends to our social blunders, our successes, and our overall presence. We replay our embarrassing moments, convinced they are etched into the minds of others, when in fact those others have likely forgotten about them within minutes, if they even notice them at all. Understanding the spotlight effect can be liberating. It reminds us that most people are not scrutinizing our every move. They are navigating their own lives, dealing with their own anxieties, and largely unconcerned with our minor imperfections. It's a powerful antidote to self-consciousness, allowing us to act with greater freedom and authenticity, knowing that the spotlight is often just a figment of our own imagination. The concept of the panopticon, conceived by the philosopher Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century, offers a chilling yet insightful model for how being watched, or even the potential of being watched, can internalize control. Bentham designed the panopticon as an ideal prison, a circular building with cells arranged around a central observation tower. From this tower, a single guard could observe all prisoners without them knowing if they were being watched at any given moment. The genius or horror of the design lies in this uncertainty. Prisoners would never know when they were being monitored, forcing them to behave as if they were always under surveillance. This wasn't just a physical structure, it was a theoretical framework for social control. Michel Foucault, a 20th century philosopher, extensively analyzed the panopticon, arguing that its principles extend far beyond prisons, permeating modern institutions and society as a whole. Foucault suggested that contemporary society has become panoptic, meaning that systems of power encourage individuals to internalize surveillance, leading to self-regulation. We police ourselves not because a physical guard is always present, but because we've adopted the gaze of the observer. Think about the pervasive use of CCTV cameras in public spaces, the tracking of our digital footprints, or even performance reviews in workplaces. We modify our behavior, our online posts, or our work ethic not always because we see a direct monitor, but because we know the potential for observation exists. This creates a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power. The panopticon's gaze, therefore, isn't about constant active watching, but about the perceived possibility of being watched at any time. This perception is enough to make us conform, to adhere to norms, and to become our own wardens. It's a subtle, insidious form of control that works by making us believe we are constantly accountable, even in solitude. This internalization means that the power structure becomes deeply ingrained within us, influencing our choices even when no one is physically present. It blurs the line between freedom and coercion, making us active participants in our own regulation. The Panopticon reminds us that power operates most effectively when it is invisible, ubiquitous, and internalized. The Panopticon's gaze, therefore, isn't about constant active watching, but about the perceived possibility of being watched at any time. This perception is enough to make us conform, to adhere to norms, and to become our own wardens. It's a subtle, insidious form of control that works by making us believe we are constantly accountable, even in solitude. This internalization means that the power structure becomes deeply ingrained within us, influencing our choices even when no one is physically present. It blurs the line between freedom and coercion, making us active participants in our own regulation. The Panopticon reminds us that power operates most effectively when it is invisible, ubiquitous, and internalized.
While being watched often leads to conformity and self-regulation, the effects are not always straightforward or negative. Observation can be a double-edged sword, sometimes enhancing performance and morality, and other times stifling creativity or fostering resentment. Take the audience effect in sports or performing arts. Many athletes or musicians find that the presence of an audience, particularly a supportive one, can elevate their performance. This is known as social facilitation, where the arousal caused by an audience can improve performance on simple, well-learned tasks. Conversely, for complex or unfamiliar tasks, the presence of an audience can lead to social inhibition, causing performance to worsen due to increased anxiety and pressure. Imagine trying to solve a complicated math problem with 100 people staring at you. The pressure alone might make you stumble. Furthermore, the type of observation matters. Is it a judgmental stare, a supportive gaze, or a neutral scientific observation? Each carries a different psychological weight. Being watched by a mentor might inspire growth, while being watched by a critical supervisor might induce fear and stifle innovation. Research has even shown that subtle cues of being watched, like images of eyes, can increase pro-social behavior. In one experiment, people were more likely to pay for their coffee in an honesty box when there was an image of a pair of eyes displayed above it, compared to an image of flowers. This eye contact effect suggests that even a symbolic representation of observation can trigger our innate social programming for cooperation and accountability. It's a primal trigger, tapping into the deep-seated understanding that eyes mean a conscious entity is present, potentially evaluating our actions. The impact of observation is therefore nuanced, highly dependent on context, individual personality, and the perceived nature of the observer. It's a testament to the intricate dance between our individual psychology and the social environments we inhabit, reminding us that the human mind is constantly adjusting, refining, and reacting to the subtle signals of its surroundings.
In our increasingly digital world, the concept of being watched has transformed from a physical presence to an omnipresent, often invisible digital gaze. Every click, every search, every social media post, and every online purchase contributes to a vast, intricate data trail that can be, and often is, observed. This isn't just about governments or corporations, it's about the pervasive nature of algorithms, artificial intelligence, and interconnected networks that process and analyze our digital selves. Unlike the Panopticon's physical guard, the digital observer is abstract, boundless, and operates continuously. The fear of being canceled or publicly shamed on social media can lead individuals to self-censor their opinions, choosing to remain silent rather than express views that might be deemed controversial or unpopular by the digital collective. This creates a chilling effect on free speech and open discourse, fostering an environment of performative conformity. Similarly, the tracking of our online behavior influences what advertisements we see, what news articles are prioritized, and what content is recommended. This creates a personalized echo chamber where our perceived interests are constantly reinforced, often without our full awareness. The digital gaze isn't just watching, it's also shaping our digital reality.
The implications for privacy and autonomy are profound. The constant possibility of data breaches, identity theft, or algorithmic bias means that our digital selves are always vulnerable. We are effectively living in a perpetual state of digital panopticon, where the specter of observation is not just a theoretical construct, but an operational reality. Even seemingly innocuous smart devices, from virtual assistants to smart home gadgets, are constantly collecting data, listening, and learning our habits. While offering convenience, they simultaneously expand the reach of the digital gaze into our most private spaces, blurring the lines between personal sanctuary and potential surveillance zone. Understanding the digital gaze isn't about fostering paranoia, but about cultivating digital literacy and critical awareness. It's about recognizing the mechanisms of invisible observation that shape our modern lives and making informed choices about how we interact with technology and how much of ourselves we willingly expose to the ever-watching digital eye.